She was 3 months away from a promotion at Deloitte. Fast track, big title, and more money. Everything you're supposed to want. And then one morning, she woke up, texted her manager, and resigned. Today's guest is Lily Woi, who describes herself as shy, quiet, reserved, and even awkward. And yet, she's built a business from scratch, written a book called Quiet Confidence, and now speaks on stages that used to terrify her. Her story is one I think a lot of people are going to relate to, because from the outside, everything looked like it was working. But on the inside, something just didn't feel right. What I love about this conversation is how honest she is about what comes next, and the reality that confidence isn't something you suddenly have. It's something you build, one small piece of evidence at a time. It's a powerful reminder that being quiet isn't a weakness. It's a strength if you only know how to use it. So without further ado, please enjoy Lily Woi and her clocking out journey. Lily, welcome to the podcast. It's great to see you.
Hey Raymond, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day, and I'm just so delighted to have our conversation here.
Same here.
Yeah, so for context for our listeners, I was looking at your background and researching your background, and the one thing that I have to call out is something that you say and how you describe yourself. And that is, you describe yourself as someone who's shy, quiet, reserved, and an awkward introvert. And when you and I met, probably a few weeks ago now, probably maybe even a month ago, and you and I started a conversation, I definitely felt the quiet and reserved and sort of how your presence and how you showed up for the call. And I remember by the end of the half hour point, there was sort of this quiet confidence that started to emerge. And then when I looked at your background, I was thinking to myself, I was like, I need to get Lily on this podcast because you have such an incredible story in terms of where your journey began. And then, you know, you've written a book, you are a thought leader, and really helping people within organizations who have sort of this, you know, I'm going to call it an awkward introvert kind of style, that you're kind of helping them see a pathway to leaning into a level of confidence that ultimately allows them to show up as their true, most authentic self. And so just so appreciative of our time here today.
Yeah. And I think it's really good to hear that even virtually you kind of sense that presence. And it's something that I think it took many years for me to not only recognize, but also to accept that the duality between, yes, I can be quite shy and awkward and reserved, but also quite confident about it as well. And that both can be the reality at the same time. And I think if harnessed correctly, it actually can be quite a career and personal strength. And I think that actually helped me in my later part of my career and really shape how I show up and how I actually engage with people very differently compared to how I started my career.
Wow. There's so many places I can go with that. I feel like it sounds like you really reconciled who you are as a person later in life and harnessed that identity, which allowed you to lean into this feeling that you know you have the confidence to sort of show up and bring to the world. And so I know our listeners are going to love this conversation. I'm just so excited about it. And so, Lily, why don't we start from the beginning? I love the origin story. Tell us, where are you from and where'd you grow up?
Yes, so I am originally from Malaysia, from the capital in Kuala Lumpur, born and raised there, and actually came over to the UK about 12 to 13 years ago. Came over for my studies, did my undergrad in Bristol, which lovely, amazing city, before I moved to London for my master degree and stayed on since then. Yeah, it's been a while.
So, what's it like growing up in Malaysia? What did your parents do for a living?
It's quite interesting that actually it's only in the recent months when I thought back about my parents and my extended family in general. We are quite an entrepreneurial family. So both my parents, so my dad have a family business with his siblings, with my uncles, and my mom is a self-employed stockbroker. So they started out as employees in companies, but really quickly moved into setting themselves up for freedom and working in kind of a very self-employed entrepreneurial way. And it's actually reflected in a lot of my relative in my extended family as well. And I think that
Mm.
also had a big impact on how I view what a career could look like for myself.
So, at an early age, their entrepreneurial sort of spirit and drive, it sounds like, had a real impact on you and the things that you were interested in. Did you work in the family business?
Yes, it has. I didn't work in the family business. I think I was just helping out kind of casually or informally. But I think it also made me realize as I started my corporate career as an employee, how unprepared I was because I knew nothing about how to navigate a corporate environment because my parents never had to do it, or they only had to do it for a couple of years before they branch out. So that was a massive learning curve for myself that, I'm actually missing a really big part of life, navigating careers that is not actually taught anywhere.
Hmm. So, when you were a young girl, what did you dream about being?
I think it probably changed every couple of months. I think I moved between being a teacher, a secretary, a broker, a scuba diver, a baker, and I think the list goes on and on. I think it was really whatever caught my fancy.
Hmm. I love that. So, when you were dreaming and you had all these great ideas of things that you aspired to be, did your parents have an influence over you in terms of what they envision you doing?
Oh yes, oh yes. I think especially, um, I think being brought up back in the days in a more kind of traditional and Asian kind of structure or cultural structure, I think the stereotype of there's only a handful of viable career options between a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, an accountant, or a president. And
That's great.
unfortunately, none of those pan out for me. I actually studied accounting and finance for my undergrad, and I actually did all of my chartered management accounting certification as well. So I'm a chartered management accountant for a short period of time, and I did all of that and realized that yes, I can't. This is not a career for me. And I thought what was really funny, thinking back, was when I was deciding which undergrad I want to pursue, business psychology was one of those options. But I was gently swayed to not go down that path because at that time there was still a bit of stereotype about the type of career a psychologist can have, and I think my parents were a bit worried about it. So they were recommending, why don't you go for the safer option as an accountant?
Hmm. because they have all the experience, right? And it's so interesting how, when you're young and you're trying to sort of figure out what you want to do, and you talked about teacher and scuba diver, and obviously those would not have been supportive. And, your parents almost sort of, they want what is best for you. And it's common, parents project what they feel like will be accepted in terms of, what your future would look like. When did you leave Malaysia? Was it for college, or did you leave sooner?
So I left for university. So I did continue with accounting and finance, and I did a management master's off the back of it. I think, to what you're saying, that you can just get stuck into the momentum of kind of progressing and building your career, and there's more and more things tied to that work identity. And I think for me, that was what happened to me in consulting. I started, I would call my first official professional career as a consultant. I did the Deloitte graduate program, consistently got promoted to consultant, senior consultant, on my way of getting promoted to manager. And I still remember this was literally 3-4 months before my promotion. I was like, right, I'm resigning to start my own business. And I think at that time, I do love the people that I'm working with. So I have my directors and partners calling me and asking, what's happening? What's really happening? Help us understand. Like, it feels like they were worried that I was making a very hasty decision, because nothing was going wrong with my career. They look highly upon me. I was getting my manager's promotion. And suddenly I was like, nope, I'm giving all of this up. I have no backup plan. I just want to go and start my business in leadership and career coaching.
Wow. You were throwing it all away.
In their eyes, yes. They were like, in a way, they thought that I was just clueless on how difficult building a business could be, of why am I giving quite a stable and certain career for something that I don't actually have a clear plan in place. So when I say I, I I have nothing set up, my business was not set up. I didn't even think about what I would call it. I didn't even think what I would even offer. It was just, right, I'm done.
Wow.
I want to leave.
Lily, did you make a phone call back home and let your parents know what you were doing? And what was the outcome of that conversation?
That's a good question. I don't think I actually told them until I resigned and started my business.
You knew what they were going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I probably knew what they were going to say. And at that time, I was still living with my sister. So I think I did talk through my plans with her. And I think she kind of looks... I think after talking it through with her, it kind of felt like it was the right thing for me to do at that time. I think for me, I felt I have outgrown consulting. And for me to be able to do what I really enjoy, I would need to leave the company. I would not be able to branch out and do what I really enjoy while still being in the company, while still being stuck in a career progression pathway that is just very different. And month by month is getting even more different from where I want to kind of build my career to.
Wow. So for context, how long were you at Deloitte before you started feeling this? And was there a moment that actually, what we say here is the straw that broke the camel's back? Like, was there a moment when you said, it's time?
Yes, there is. And I would say it's more of a lead up to that moment. So I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years into consulting and into Deloitte where I started to work more in change management, culture change, leadership development, and one of the project director actually sponsored my coaching qualification because I was getting so interested and so deep into that side of work. And it was something that I think it was through that specific project that made me realize that, yes, this is it. This is what I wanted to be doing. I want to do more of it. I can see myself having a career doing this.
Hmm.
And at that time, I actually had to step away from my practice. Uh, so my kind of home practice in Deloitte to a different practice to be able to do it. So that actually stunted some of my career promotion prospect because I was developing and doing something that is not directly aligned to my home practice.
Wow.
But I think because I was so interested in it, for me, it was a worthwhile risk for me to take. And after that project, I really wanted to do more of it. And I think I struggled kind of branching out and being to do more of it without feeling quite restricted by my home practice because I'm getting mixed messaging in a sense that, yes, we want you to do what you enjoy, but at the same time, to be promoted, you need to demonstrate all of these things. And it's the things that I no longer enjoy doing.
Hmm.
So that's kind of that tension I have to manage. And at first I thought of maybe I can start a side hustle doing coaching while still having my job in consulting. And I think because of how, complicated and so many red tapes with being able to have a business when working in consultancy, it took quite a while to go through kind of like the compliance, the approval process. And it got to a point where I was like, right, I can't wait anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've waited for you to approve this and sign this off long enough. I want to do this, and if you are not going to allow me to do it while working in the company, I would just leave and do it myself.
Hmm.
And it was, I think, for me, that moment was just a morning, a random morning that I woke up. It's like I knew what I had to do. And I just messaged my partner to say, do you have some time? I wanted to talk to you. And from there, I just said that I'm thinking of resigning.
That's pretty incredible, Lily. I go back to the first thing that I opened with, where you described yourself as shy, quiet, reserved. And for you to be able to walk into this meeting with your partner at Deloitte to put in your notice, the feeling that you had must have been so incredible. And your ability to lean into this confidence that it must have, this buildup was a buildup in confidence that you've been able to accumulate over time. Confidence of you getting promoted at Deloitte in a variety of different roles, but then this sort of inner confidence that surfaced that morning where you could just have this conversation and be so sure and have so much clarity that it's time to go. I wonder, it sounds like it was a buildup, but then was it scary at the same time?
Yes, so scary. There is so much self-doubt. There is so much uncertainty. And I think also seeing how my mentors, my managers, my directors reacted to the news kind of reinforced those self-doubt as well. It was more of what happened, why are you doing this?
Right.
Rather than, oh, this is great, I really support you. That came further down the line towards my last few days where I was like saying my goodbyes. But the immediate reaction where I just messaged them to say, I just submitted my resignation. it was pure, in a way, looking back, a funny chaos
Mm,
because I have basically thrown a spanner into everyone's kind of week where, one day Lily was just working happily, performing well, and the next day she was like, I'm done.
right. Wow. Yeah, they weren't supportive right out of the get-go when you announced that you were leaving. They were shocked, and I could see how their reaction almost had you second guessing whether you made the right decision or not. But it sounds like as you sort of worked through your notice period, it started to make sense. Like as you started really talking about what your dreams were and what you wanted to do, they were like, okay, we could see that now. And that must have been reassuring.
Yeah. And I would say how they reacted was from a place of concern.
Hmm.
Those were the mentors and the managers that I value highly, and I trusted and have a lot of respect to them. So, because of kind of like the care and the respect they have for me as well. So I could see that all of their questions was more about, is there something else going on in your life that we don't know? Like, what can we do to help you? Is this
Mm.
like a hasty decision because something have happened? That what can we do to help you and convince you to stay? So they were
Wow.
still more in that perspective of this, like what actually happened, like something must have gone wrong for you
Right.
to resign. So it was hard for them to realize that actually nothing is going wrong. I do like all of you. I do like my job. I'm quite happy in the company, but there is just something more that I
Mm.
want to be doing that the company at that moment is not able to offer me.
Right.
And I think as I kind of told them more about what I really wanted to do, they could see how excited I was as well. So I think that's when they kind of realized that, right, okay, it's because of this and it's not because of like something horrible have happened to me.
Right. That's interesting. It almost feels like what your parents would react in terms of, you finally reaching out to them and saying, Mom, Dad, I quit Deloitte a week ago, and this is what I'm doing. And then I could see your mom and dad saying, but Lily, what happened? What happened at the job that would cause you to walk away from something so great? And you saying, oh, nothing happened. Everything's fine. I just wanted to do something different. And they would say, Lily, are you crazy?
Yeah, yes, yes. I think it's back to I'm giving up financial stability
Right.
for something that's very uncertain and something that has not been proven to be successful.
Right.
And I think, yeah, it was quite hard for them to wrap their head around it.
Hmm.
Um, but I think looking back, I could see why. I think looking back, I was taking a huge risk by doing it and having no kind of backup plan in place. But I think it also felt the right moment. And I think looking back, had I stayed longer in Deloitte, I would start to feel resentful.
Mm.
And I was actually really glad I left at that time because I parted in very good terms with everyone.
I think that's a great lesson. And there's never the right time. It's always sort of what you're feeling and just having that clarity around being willing to make that decision and not look back. And kudos to you for feeling it, recognizing it, and then acting on it and just doing it. So many people I speak to, when they hit that build up, and they get to that point, they can feel it, but they don't act on it. And so what they end up doing is like, let me just work harder and do more, get the next promotion, and that feeling will go away, and then I'll be happy, because they sort of start to justify why they should continue down the path because I've worked so hard. And I should be really grateful for this. And the idea of leaving it and leaving that stability and going to something that is incredibly uncertain is so scary, but it's the one that's the most rewarding in the end.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's really interesting because looking back, I can only see that was what had happened. At that point, I wouldn't be even, I wasn't even able to articulate or recognize that was what was happening. And I still vividly remember the conversation with my partner. I can still remember his face. I can still remember that. I can still remember the things that my director said to me. I can still remember how messy it was the first year of just figuring out. I think for me, I found the most challenging is recognizing and accepting that my work identity is no longer there. And while it's exciting to have a blank piece of paper to rewrite what that is, it is also so scary and so messy and so uncertain.
So what did you ultimately do? So you gave notice, you walked away from this career. I'm not going to call it amazing career because it was amazing in the beginning, but then it opened your eyes up to what you were really called to do. But what was next? Where did you go from there?
So I started my business doing career and leadership coaching and training. So I spent a lot of time, and actually some of my contacts in Deloitte and in my wider network actually referred on people to me. And I got my first set of clients through referral, which is amazing. I figure out how to set up my LinkedIn profile. Never had to pay attention to that, and now it's all I can think of, setting up a website and also pushing myself to learn how to sell myself, sell my business, and to push me actually to start speaking on stages. And that was something that I never thought I would willingly say yes to. And I can still vividly remember my first stage, how badly it went. And after that, I just couldn't stay at the conference. I went to a friend's place and had a mini breakdown.
Wow.
And I was like, it was the worst experience. It went so bad. I can't believe I did it. But it was all in my head. Like, I just felt so awkward. It's so uncomfortable, so unnatural. But I did it anyway, and it was uphill from there.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Your shy, quiet, reserved style, you told yourself stories and it impacted that first delivery. But then once you got on stage and you worked through that, then it was all downhill from there, in terms of saying, okay, I did it that time. I would imagine the next time was probably still terrifying, but it wasn't as terrifying because then you could tell yourself a story that I did it. Like I got up there, right? And so how long did it take for you to feel, I mean, there's nervous energy, but where you felt even more confident that this is my stage and I'm going to own it?
I don't think I ever felt that yet. I think I still get very nervous the lead up to delivering it. I still second guess or question myself. What on earth, Lily, made you say yes to doing it? Why did you say yes up until the moment I step on stage?
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice that because of how many times I've done it, the practice that I have done, I recorded and watched myself and look to see how I improve. I work with a speaking coach to help me improve my presence and my communication style as well. That when I'm on stage, I can feel myself easing into the delivery and stop second guessing myself and get out of my own head. So I wouldn't say that I stopped being worried or uncertain or stop having self-doubts. I think that is kind of starting to be overshadowed by, yes, there were more and more moments that I've done it and received positive feedback, and that made me believe that I can do it another time.
Yeah, I have a similar kind of experience where early on in my career, it's probably 10 years ago now, where I was like deathly afraid to speak at a conference. And I went to one of these boot camp, like public speaking boot camps in New York, and just immersed myself in it. And I ended up having to, through the training, at the end of the one-day boot camp, you had to do like a little 5-minute TED talk. It was, it was like you basically stood there and told a story for 5 minutes to the class, and it was recorded, and then they watched the recording. And I did that training, and then ultimately had a very similar experience where I was presenting to 250 HR professionals, which is my career, where I grew up, and I was just so afraid to get on stage, and the nerves were just unmanageable, and I just felt the same thing. And getting up there and just being able to do this little 5-minute talk was so scary. But I still do have those stories, that you're describing. You never get to, well, wouldn't say never, but I do agree with you 100% where, when you have a fear of something, like there is a voice that surfaces, and you have to really be intentional about quieting that voice, because if you don't, it just will take over, and it just becomes like so stressful.
Yeah. 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 I think sometimes that voice gets so loud that it will even start planning how I can get sick or be in an unfortunate accident. that means that I could get out from speaking, and looking back or kind of recognizing or catching myself in those moments, I had to just laugh it off on what your mind can do to
Right.
you to self-sabotage, and had to be quite intentional of keeping a list of all my achievement and reading it over and over to help to start quieting that down a bit. And I think the first time of me getting paid to speak, I think that was that defining moment to say, right, it's
Yeah.
different now. Like, people are actually paying me to go and speak to their corporate events or their conferences, and that felt also very different. I think that also legitimized a bit of, yeah, people do want to hear what I have to say.
That's great. I love it. I love that you sort of reach that validation of being paid as a speaker, and recognizing that, people are paying you for your talent and your expertise. And the fact that you've connected to that definitely sort of diminishes that feeling to some degree. I know you wrote a book in 2023 that was published called Quiet Confidence. And what was the inspiration around publishing a book, and why the title Quiet Confidence? What were you looking to achieve there?
I think writing a book was something that I thought about, but was never part of my plan. especially so early into starting a business. But I publish it through Bookboon, which is a corporate learning platform. And they were the one who reached out to me through LinkedIn to say, hey, we really enjoy what you're doing. Would you be interested in writing a book through us? And I would just need to write it, get it proofread, but they would deal with the editing, the publishing, the marketing side of stuff. And at that point, I was like, why not? What's there to lose?
Right. Yeah.
And I think through kind of having the initial conversation with them, and we were talking about what I could possibly write for them, I think quiet confidence really struck something in me. I think I wanted a way to be able to condense what I have learned about myself, how I have accepted my introversion, and how I've turned it into one of my great strengths to be successful in my career, and what are the different moments that led me there. So kind of this book about quiet confidence is the distillation of all of those, of some very personal journeys, but also quite practical guidance or tools to say this is what you can do to think differently or kind of reframe things for yourself, or how do you create space for yourself and how do you step into that space confidently without feeling like you need to be loud or be an extrovert or be highly visible to be able to do so.
I love that. It's your journey, and I think you have navigated through some really bold decisions where you started this career in a very traditional job. You became successful, but you quickly recognized that there was so much more that you wanted to achieve. And this book is a reflection of that journey, and it inspires people who have a similar story where they're trying to find the inspiration deep down inside, that they too have what it takes to make a change and lean into something that from their perspective is just so much more meaningful, and you're giving them sort of the playbook to navigate through that uncertainty. And the other thing too is that, I mean, you are obviously on this journey, and you're creating this content, and you're sort of sharing your story about what's possible. And so I think people are, they're reading your book, they're looking at your journey, and they're saying, wow, I could do the same thing. And I just think that's so inspiring.
That's a very lovely kind of summary and reflection, kind of back to what you have seen or what you heard from me. I think it still, in a way, surprises me that my journey and kind of what I've learned and my growth can serve as an inspiration to others. And actually, when I started writing this book, I think for me it felt more of a benefit to myself to be able to articulate something in a book. And for me to have a reminder that I did something like writing a book. And I never actually thought that it would generate an income stream for me. I never thought that it would actually inspire other people, that people would actually read it and reach out and say, hey, I read your book and I really enjoy it and found it useful, and it actually changed my career or helped my career. So I remember someone reached out to me on LinkedIn saying that they read my book and they have implemented some of the strategies that I mentioned, and it made a difference. And I had to reread that message so many times for it to actually sink in, because I was like, wow, it actually made a difference. And I think it is something that I still look back to say, okay, it is actually worth something.
That's great. I was just thinking about, I want to go back to your parents now for a moment, because they probably early on, when you mentioned you were leaving Deloitte and you were going to go on this journey, this uncertainty, but you had a vision. When did they see the vision? Was it, at what point did they say, okay, Lily, we get it?
I think that's an interesting question. I don't think they have ever seen and understood the vision, even to now. I think for me, how I look at my parents and what I understand of them, their main worry and concern is, are you happy? Are you safe? Can you pay your bills? Is your health good? So as long as I check those boxes, they're happy for me to do whatever I want. And I
Yeah.
think it's something that it took me a while to really understand where they're coming from. Is that, yes, they get excited and they really like listening me telling them what I do and what I have achieved, and they're really proud and supportive of it. But I think underneath it all, it's as long as you're happy, as long as you're safe, as long as you're financially stable, do what you want.
That feels good. I feel like you want that, right? That support, that feeling. I feel like they're incredibly supportive. They're very proud, and you've sort of demonstrated that you can do it, right? Like, you're leading your life on your terms, and you're doing what feels right for you within the context of being safe, secure, healthy, financially stable, and you're living the life that you scripted for yourself, and it's not on anyone else's terms. And so I think that that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I kind of laugh a bit with what you just said. I think the thought that immediately comes to my mind is, I think it's only now I can articulate it in such a nice manner. But at that time, it didn't feel like that. You know, I can be quite a stubborn person. And at that time, while I was just trying to make my business work, figure things out at the same time, trying to kind of reassure my parents that things are going fine, it's going well, I'm figuring things out, trying to learn so many things I didn't knew I had to know about running a business. It was such, thinking back, it was the most fun but scary and frustrating part or period of kind of my life. And I think it was sheer stubbornness that also kind of propelled me forward and kind
Sure.
of make me stick to it.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think,
You wanted to prove that
yeah,
you could do it.
exactly. So I think even if at the point, my parents did kind of raise concern, like kind of my mentors and all, and I think it's kind of that was how I kind of deflected all their concern. It's, don't worry, it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's working. And they're going to continue to accept and support. So, Lily, I wanted to get your advice. And there was something also that I read, and I believe this is either from the book or it was an article that was written about your book, Quiet Confidence. And you said you used to hide in the bathroom stalls to escape the overwhelm of the corporate life. And while the visual of that is so dramatic, is sort of an escape, I feel like so many people today are hiding. It may not necessarily be in the bathroom, but they're hiding in their office. They're hiding behind a screen, and they're trying to escape this sort of overwhelm of corporate life. And I just wonder, what advice do you give to someone who is in hiding, but they know they want to come out?
Have enough courage to share your overwhelm. I think when I actually found the courage to say that, look, I am exhausted, I am overwhelmed, I am overstimulated, I need to go home now. I can't stay any longer here. I enjoyed my time. And I was actually surprised by how accepting and understanding everyone is. So it was, in a way, my own personal strategy to reset and find quiet time for myself, to find silence, because I felt the pressure of the constant socializing, the constant networking, the constant relationship building that you need to do to be successful at work. And I think when I shared that, actually, I was surprised by how many other people felt the same. It's like, oh, me too, I can't wait to go home. And I think it made me realize that, I'm not the only one.
Wow. That's such great advice. I feel like being vulnerable is a quality, and I wrote down this word superpower. You know, your ability to show up as your most authentic self and be vulnerable about how overwhelmed you were provides just so much character, confidence, and it gives you that ability that you could just work through anything, you know?
I think it took a while for me to be ready to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I think it was something that I recognized I struggle with. But I think by doing that, I've also seen what you can invite back from other people. It's also because of that I managed to build a lot of really strong relationships at work,
Yeah.
not just in my personal life.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure that's so relatable to people who are looking for that escape and connecting with how comfortable you got to a place to be able to share that uncomfortableness. And what a great life lesson. I'm speechless. Like, I think your story is so inspiring. There's a lot of people who are in this situation today that you described years ago when you were at Deloitte, and they're riding the hamster wheel, they're on the treadmill, they're grinding, they're growing in their career, and there are so many people who are just not fulfilled in the work that they're doing. And I feel like your story about the inspiration that you had to make a change and to lean into what truly was going to bring you fulfillment, I think is quietly going to impact so many lives.
I'm glad. I'm hopeful. And I
Yeah.
hope it does.
Yeah. And I just don't want this conversation to end. I feel like I can talk to you forever. Like, honestly, it's been great. Any last minute thoughts that you'd like to share? I'm going to share your information in our show notes in terms of how to get the book and how to access you. So we'll do that. But any other last minute thoughts that you'd like to share?
I think one of the things that pops into my mind as you were talking about the hamster wheel, the grind, the unfulfillment, I think one of the things and one of the bitter pill I had to learn and swallow and keep reminding myself is things would take the time it needs. And there are just certain things that you can't force and rush yourself. into. I think kind of looking back, it's only by looking back I can now put it into a story. And I think sometimes it can give listeners and readers an illusion of how nice it can be or how wonderful it can be. But I think there were also a lot of moments where things do have taken longer than I would have liked because it just needed that time. And no amount of forcing actually it made me suffer more than
Right.
anything else. So I think maybe that's in a way the counteract to that is that the reality of you being at that moment would feel really different. I think it's always looking back is where you can just paint that picture of what the journey actually looks like in totality.
Right. Yeah, that's so well said. Well, Lily, it's been just such a delight getting to know you. I think our listeners are going to relate to much of what you shared today, and your story is such an inspiration. Really appreciate you joining the show and being so vulnerable and being real. I think that's so amazing and really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed my time and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time. Hello, everyone. It's Raymond again here. I want to take a moment to say a special thanks to our sponsor, Career Minds. They're a global provider of career transition and career development solutions. And if you'd like to hear more on Clocking Out, we'd love for you to take a second and click follow of your favorite podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a rating or review. It really helps new listeners find the show. You can also watch the full episode on YouTube. Just search Clocking Out with Raymond Lee and hit subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to check out our episode polls or just drop us a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Finally, if you or someone you know has a story to share about navigating change, taking a risk, or rethinking your career, we want to hear from you. Head to the link in our show notes and fill out the form to be considered for a future episode. Until next time, remember, if you're just sitting there thinking that you're stuck or you're unsure of your career or future and you think it's time for a change, I would encourage yourself to ask these 3 questions. Does my career or work make me feel alive? Am I doing the things that genuinely matter to me most? Am I creating value for myself and for others? Until next time.